Now, Jake, I want to move on to SEC expansion, conference realignment. It's been a big topic. I've kind of been, at first I was thinking about everybody, okay, who should the SEC go out and get to make them stronger and stuff like that. But then I got to thinking, I was like, when you go out, right, and you go and you're looking at like a nightclub, or you're looking at a restaurant or something like that, and you walk around the corner and you see, man, look at that line to get in there. Like, I wonder what's going on there. It's because they're the places that are the places to be, they limit their spots. They make those spots special. And I wonder if Greg Sankey and company should say, hey, we're not going to expand. We're going to stay at 16 because we're going to keep the premium status here of the SEC, and we're not going to water it down by adding some teams that may be not up to par.
Yeah, look, I call it selective aggression, right? Because at the end of the day, there is not, even with the movement we've had, that's why I think what Brett Yormark's done with the Big 12 has been brilliant, because there's only so many brands and markets together that are worth collecting, right? Everybody, that's the perfect mix, right? You talk about in beer pong, right? Oh, I got the perfect mix. I can't miss now. It's a brand and a market. UCF, growing brand. Big market. BYU, it's a religion. You got a religion, like it's a huge market, big brand. BYU is a big brand. Houston, big brand, huge market. You can recruit what I call the state of Houston and be fine. You can walk out there, throw a rock, and hit a 5-star in all 3 sports. Cincinnati, big market, big brand, just made the college football playoff. Can't believe they hired Satterfield, but that's a story for another day. And then obviously Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, all that. But if you're the SEC, I'm not budging. Number one, I have leverage, okay? But I'm not budging unless you are a big ticket item, right? Obviously, Texas and Oklahoma, huge. You'd be dumb not to take them. If you can get Florida State, you get them. If you can get Clemson, you get them. If you can get North Carolina, you get them. If you can get Virginia Tech, a brand that not a lot of people are talking about, but when you think about Virginia, Blayne, that state, who do you think about in football first?
I think people our age, we're definitely going to think of Mike Vick and Virginia Tech and all that time. So.
Inner Sandman, Blacksburg. Right? I don't think about Virginia. I'm not out here trying to finish first in my law class. No, if that's great. If you do, Suits is one of my favorite shows. But at the end of the day, we're talking about football. So it's look where the ACC is right now. Who you're going to bring in Stanford and Cal? Okay, nice. Into the Atlantic Coast Conference. You're right. The only one out there right now, outside of the ones I just listed, in my opinion, and you can throw Miami in there, is obviously Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame didn't come to the SEC. So if you're Greg Sankey, you can be selectively aggressive. And I think all this Florida State, Clemson talk to the Big Ten, I think it's them just kind of flaunting and dancing around for the SEC, to say, hey, Greg Sankey, look, it's like all of a sudden – you just started dating. Now you're trying to impress her by making other people like you. Like, I get it. I understand what you're doing. But at the end of the day, if you're the SEC, you don't have to reach. Old bull, young bull, you're the old bull. Let's walk down there, man.
But do you think it's a point of necessity even right now that they must kind of cut the Big Ten off from gaining even more teams? Or do you think with the brands and the regionality, I know you're a guy that's big on conferences should be regional, and I know Florida State and Clemson would remain in that, but the SEC's branding and the SEC's regionality is still intact and on point right now. Do you think they need to make that preemptive move, maybe more so for a Florida school like a Florida State or Miami, just to prevent the Big Ten from the recruiting inroads down there, or are Florida State and Clemson a must in your opinion that you have to keep them from going to the Big Ten?
Well, I think it's like Coach Red Bayou said in The Water Boy. You know what my daddy said was the only thing that was better than one crawfish dinner is 3 crawfish dinners. And look, I don't buy this talk of the SEC that they're good. They're not out here looking to add anybody. Look, the slogan of the conference is it just means more. Okay, I was born at night, but not last night. The SEC is the predator. They're not the prey. They're not sitting back here just going to be ho-hum and happy. Now, they don't have to do anything. I think they'd be fine either way. And like I said earlier, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't understand, even with the leverage payments that they're talking about with the ACC, which they could change within themselves at any point in time, how Florida State and Clemson's going to go to the Big Ten. Now, I will never underestimate a lawyer's ability to be able to make an argument, but, you know, I haven't seen the files, I haven't seen the papers, but my question's not if or when for Florida State or Clemson if they try to go to the Big Ten, it's how. How is that going to work? Now, what I do know is that the ACC has a contract with ESPN, and I know that
Like
SEC
2036
has a contract.
or something.
Yeah, look, the SEC has a contract with ESPN. So if there was any wiggle room in there, I think it'd be a whole heck of a lot easier to keep the same media entity and just slide them into the SEC as opposed to let Fox come down here and snatch them. Now, look, the Big Ten's already going to add USC and UCLA. We know that. Now, Oregon and Washington. I'm wondering how much the Big Ten is willing to move to go get Florida State and Clemson, and now go from having to take all these West Coast teams, okay, because Oregon and Washington helps build that bridge to the Big Ten, right? That's going to help the smaller sports because college football hadn't broken off from all the other ones yet, which I think is coming down the pipe. But now you throw in Florida State and Clemson in the mix. Imagine that travel schedule now.
Yeah.
Like imagine adding that. So I think a lot of it is not if or when, it's how. And I think the SEC knows that. I think they know Florida State's putting on all their makeup and dressing as good as they can to try and impress them. But Greg Sankey, he's not going to be tricked. This isn't an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Like the SEC moves at their own pace.
Man, the thing that I'm going to just chuckle heavily at is when we get to this 12-team playoff next year and 4 or 5 SEC teams make it and it blows, everybody goes nuts because guess what? What we just talked about with the SEC West, there's not a harder division out there in football. And I know we're not going to have divisions anymore, but all these teams are going to be there. Now, I know there's probably going to be another loss or two. An undefeated season is going to be harder when you got Alabama and Texas and Georgia and LSU and everybody playing each other more frequently. But my goodness, if it doesn't make these SEC teams even more deserving of a playoff spot when it comes down to it. If you're talking about getting the best 12, there's got to be probably 4 or 5 SEC teams in there every year.
Yeah, well, I mean, what has the standard been pretty much? Like 10-2? Like that's about the level that I know LSU was kind of an anomaly last year. If they'd have beaten Georgia, it'd have gotten really, really interesting down the stretch on who they would have let in the playoff. But the threshold's been like, all right, 10-2, and you're going to have to hope to get in. Well, now that it goes to 12, the right 9-3, and the way you finish the year in the SEC, now that you're adding text, talk about strength of schedule, being in the criteria, being in the rubric of who the committee chooses. I mean, look, and they'll complain, they'll cry, and they'll kick and scream about it. But every time any rule's been changed or any teams have been added to the postseason, the rich get richer, right? The rich are going to get richer. Typically, there's only 3, maybe 4 teams each year that have a chance to win the Natty. And 4, I think I'm being nice saying that. And I do think it will help parity over time. Right? Parity isn't a switch that's flipped. It's like fixing an economy. You don't switch a flip or flip a switch and fix an economy. It's a lot of good choices made over time that ends up increasing that. And I think it will do that. But you mean to tell me that the SEC is not going to benefit more from a 12-team playoff with that many at-larges? Come on now.